The Philadelphia Eagles simply just aren't as good as they were last season, and the Cowboys just absolutely showed us that. Now, there is no doubt that the Eagles and the Cowboys are both just two of the best teams in the league. They played in early November, and the Eagles did end up getting the win 28-23. Fast forward just over a month later, and we got to see them face off again, this time on Sunday Night Football with the whole country watching. And for the second straight week, the Eagles got blown out. It leaves a lot of questions about Philadelphia and just how legit they are as a Super Bowl contender. Obviously, they were there last season, but they lost a lot of pieces, especially on the defense, and that has been completely exposed in the last 2 weeks by the Cowboys and the 49ers. Now, the Eagles are still a top team in football, we all know that, but how do they actually stack up with the other best teams, specifically in the NFC? In back-to-back weeks, Philadelphia has played the only other teams in the conference with 10 wins, and neither one went well at all. They didn't just lose, they lost by a combined score of 75-32.
Wow, man. Damn.
Week 14, Eagles at Cowboys, Sunday Night Football, entire country tuning in, and Philadelphia just came out flat. For the second straight week, they played really bad. Dallas just dominated them, start to finish. They ended up going up 10-0 at the end of the first quarter, and they just never looked back. I mean, the Cowboys looked incredible, especially that defense. That was 100% the story of the game. It just felt like the Eagles offense could not move the football, and whenever they would get a drive going, eventually they just get stuffed. The Cowboys came up in the big moments and just played a much better game. The Eagles couldn't capitalize on anything, and they didn't even have an offensive touchdown in the game. For how good this offense is supposed to be with Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, to get no offensive touchdowns is brutal. The one Eagles touchdown of the game came from a fumble recovery touchdown by Jalen Carter. Man, that dude Jalen Carter is fast. I mean, who would have thought? We did not know he was fast. The only other points of the entire game for the Eagles came in the second quarter. Jake Elliott ended up hitting 2 field goals from 52 and 44. Man, he's been good. And for whatever reason, this was just like a good kicker game, but we'll get back to that. The Eagles, they just had a very sloppy game. They played sloppy football. They ended up losing 3 fumbles. You can't turn the ball over 3 times, especially against a team like the Cowboys. And a season ago, there really just wasn't much of a debate between the two teams. But now the Cowboys may just be the better team. Dak Prescott is playing at an MVP level and threw for 2 touchdowns, one of which was to CeeDee Lamb to start the scoring, who is just having an unreal season, may end up being the best of his career so far. Obviously, Dallas has a lot of dues, especially on that defense. Everybody knows it, but you usually don't hear a lot of talk about kickers, but that just hasn't been the case for Brandon Aubrey. You hear it every game. This dude was a first-round pick in the 2017 MLS Super Draft. Now, he's a really good kicker, and he's 30 for 30 in his career, and he just single-handedly outscored in prime time. He had a career-long 60-yarder against the Eagles and also hit from 59, 45, and 50. Those last 3 field goals were actually the 3 final scores of the game after the Jalen Carter touchdown. It felt like the Eagles might actually be able to build some momentum there, but the Cowboys defense just stonewalled them again. Dallas ended up winning 33-13, and suddenly the Eagles have gone from the number 1 seed in the NFC down to the number 5 seed. Philly does have the same record as both the Cowboys and the 49ers at 10-3, but they don't hold the tiebreaker, so are now in the first wildcard spot behind all 4 division winners. That means that, yes, the Eagles are currently slated behind the 6-7 NFC South division leader. Now, even with how bad the week went for the Eagles, getting blown out by the rival, it still wasn't as bad as week 13. 49ers at Eagles. Eagles playing at the Link. And wow, dude, it was ugly. This is the game where I really think the Niners made it clear who were the kings. in the NFC. It was a game we made a video about. It had obviously been circled for the 49ers. They felt like they had kind of been wrong in that NFC Championship game last season because Brock Purdy ended up getting hurt. Now they had a healthy quarterback. They didn't have Josh Johnson come in, suffer a concussion, and then have a quarterback that just couldn't throw the football. They were healthy, and they had already blown out the Cowboys 42-10 in early October. Now they got their stab at the Eagles. It was time to do the same, and they did just that. Now, unlike when the Eagles played Dallas, Philadelphia actually jumped out to a 6-0 lead at the end of the first quarter. It didn't look like this was going to be a bad game. It looked like it was going to be pretty interesting. Everybody was hyping it up as the game of the day, and it definitely was. The Eagles literally forced back-to-back 3-and-outs to start the game. The defense looked good. The 49ers had -6 yards after 2 drives. The Eagles did not stop them for the rest of the game. The Niners had 6 straight touchdown drives and scored 21 unanswered. Like I said, the Eagles were up 6-0. Then Brandon Ayuk scored, Christian McCaffrey scored, and Deebo Samuel scored. The Eagles did try to answer back, and Jalen Hurts punched in a rushing touchdown to make it 21-13. But of course, then Brock Purdy threw back-to-back touchdowns to Deebo, Jawan Jennings, and suddenly they're up 35-13. This one was over. The Eagles scored again, and Deebo added a 3rd touchdown just for fun. That's a 42-19 loss, man. That is a crazy blowout. Really not great. The Niners needed to win that game to try to make a run at the 1 seed, and they did. They did whatever they wanted to in that one. Dallas then needed to beat the Eagles to try to get home field advantage or maybe even fight for the 1 seed, and they did. Both got wins when they needed to against the Eagles, and it wasn't particularly close. The Eagles are just really struggling right now, and one thing is clear, this isn't the same team from last season, man. Last year, the Eagles only lost 4 games, and all were still close in the 4th quarter, including the Super Bowl. They've lost 3 this season, now 1 to Zach Wilson, because just the offense couldn't score, and they have now been blown out twice. I think the most concerning stat for the Eagles is actually point differential. For one, they've been outscored by 43 points in December. That's the worst in football, but this has been a full year issue. Emmanuel Acho had a good tweet. I know, extremely rare Emmanuel Acho good take. I think every single time we've brought him up on this channel, it's been bad, but he had some good tweets here. He tweeted the point differentials of all 3 10-3 NFC teams. The Cowboys having a 188 point differential, 49ers 175, and Eagles 21, just 21. The 6-7 Saints have a 24 point differential. This just isn't the same Eagles team from last season, man. They've, more than anything, they've struggled to stop teams from scoring. Acho again here tweeted the last 10 defensive possessions for the Eagles. Now, this is not counting the end of the game against the Niners because they just hold on the ball to win the game. In those last 10 drives, Philadelphia has given up 9 touchdowns and a field goal. No stops whatsoever. This defense has just struggled. Now, it really isn't that surprising. A ton of the blame goes straight to linebacker and secondary. Here's a reminder that the Eagles did lose a ton from last season. They lost linebackers TJ Edwards, Kaiser White. They lost 2 safeties, Marcus Epps, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who actually led the league in interceptions, plus defensive tackle Javon Hargrave left in free agency for the Niners because, of course, they needed more help on the defensive line somehow. The defense was just supposed to get worse, and that was expected, but the offensive regression is a bit concerning. They lost Isaac Suamalo on the offensive line and Miles Sanders, but that's really it. I think the offense is just having a weird rough patch. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to figure it out. The defensive struggles are here to stay, though, I think. This Eagles team is still a very good team, but this just isn't like last season. Right now, they are the 3rd best team in the NFC, I think, at best. At least now, we don't have to hear about any more Jalen Hurts winning MVP. That was such a bizarre thing, in my opinion, when you look at the stats, the play, the pieces around. It's probably going to be one of the 2 dudes that just beat him, Dak Prescott or Brock Purdy. And if I had to take my guess, those are one of the 2 dudes that's going to win the NFC this year, not Jalen Hurts or the Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks for watching the video. If you don't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Follow us on social media at JDProdNFL. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram at DIIDLAKE. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.